Welcome back. If you have employees, you've probably received tons of information on the employee retention credit, and you may be wondering, is it a scam or is it a legitimate program, and does the IRS really owe you $26,000 per employee from the pandemic? So we're going to look at the good, the bad, the ugly to see if you might be eligible for this and if it's even something that you want to pursue once you hear all the finer details. So first of all, this is a refundable tax credit for wages paid to employees during the pandemic. For 2021, it's up to 70% of qualified wages, $7,000 per quarter, up to $21,000 per employee. For 2020, it's 50% of qualified wages, up to $5,000 per employee for the year. However, your business must have sustained a full or partial suspension of operations during COVID-19, and it must have been due to a government order. And you had to have experienced a significant decline in gross receipts, which the IRS is now defining as more than 10% decline. Now for some of the bad parts of the employee retention credit. First of all, understand that if you receive PPP funding during the pandemic, you cannot use the same wages that you used on that application to also apply for the employee retention credit. Also, if you're an S corporation, you can't use the wages of any majority shareholders or their family members. So you can't use wages for related parties in applying for this credit. You have to amend prior period payroll tax returns in order to get this refund, and it could take 6 to 12 months because of the IRS backlog. You also have to amend prior year business and personal income tax returns because you have to reduce any wages that you deducted those years by the amount of the credit you received. So you're going to owe the IRS back taxes for those years, and they're also going to send some penalty and interest notices on those back taxes. For the ugly on the employee retention credit, first of all, the fees for the calculation of these by some third parties are 15 to 20% or more, and they may expect that these fees be paid up front before you even receive the refund from the IRS. And make sure you read the fine print. Make sure that these third parties are willing to share their calculations with you so that you understand them, you feel comfortable with them, and you can share them with your CPA or your tax provider to also get a second opinion on these. The IRS knows that there is tons of fraud going on with these. Third parties are pushing these through to get the huge fees and they may or may not even offer any assistance after the fact. So the IRS is stepping up audits on these, and they're sending out constant warnings for people to be aware of these because there's so much fraud from these ERC mills. So be aware of this and make sure that you hire somebody that you trust and not just someone you got a postcard from. If you receive the employee retention credit, things could go from bad to worse if you don't handle things correctly and communicate with any shareholders. So be aware that any individuals are going to have to amend their personal returns from prior years. So they may be surprised when they get those notices from the IRS that penalties and interest are now due. They may be able to apply for first-time abatement on those penalties, but any interest is going to be due regardless. The IRS doesn't forgive interest on back taxes. So just communicate that very well with shareholders. Also, if you get audited and the IRS disallows this, you're going to have to pay back all of the employee retention credit plus penalties and interest to the IRS, and they're going to expect the full amount back. So that 15 or 20% or more that you paid to a third party, you're going to have to come up with those funds as well to pay back to the IRS if they find that you weren't eligible for these funds. So just be very careful and only hire reputable individuals to do this for you.